morning,
Another
Ernest.
week on the Sports City show, and I'm able to move the thumb around a little better. Things are looking up. Had a big game yesterday, beat the Bucks, and hey, we're pumped. We're excited. We're gonna have a great show, and let's get it started.
Thank you for the coffee, Ernest. Welcome to Breakfast with Champion. I'm Jeff Marion, and visiting with Randy Kennedy from iHeartRadio, and he does AL.com. He's also with the Southern 120, talking about sports recruiting. And tell us a little bit about what you saw this week in the prep football arena.
Well, another great week in high school football here on the coast, and the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star Game roster was announced within the last week, and that's a big deal. Every year at this time we find out who's going to be in that game. The game this year is going to be in Hattiesburg at Southern Mississippi in December, and a couple of local guys made that list who we see starring every Friday night, and those guys will be on display coming up in December at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star Game.
Well, that's great. I see that Jaden Wally is going to be on the roster. Tell us a little bit about Jaden Wally from D'Iberville.
Yeah, D'Iberville High School, and he's one of these guys that when you get to these all-star situations, they don't always play the same position they played in high school. So he's a star quarterback and various things at the high school level. At the all-star game, he'll be playing the wide receiver position because Mississippi's got so many talented guys playing quarterback that he'll be playing wide receiver.
So he's kind of a master at several different trades.
Yeah.
He's not just one. But you said he will be going in as a wide receiver?
That's what he'll play in the All-Star game. Another guy that's definitely worth looking at is McKinley Jackson. We talked about him last year from George County. Defensive lineman, had another great game last week. It just seems like we say that every single week. But I think this is a guy that is destined to be in the NFL if something doesn't go wrong with him in terms of injuries. He is just a great player, still being pursued by everybody. LSU, which is where he was previously committed, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Auburn, all those teams in the SEC West. That's another guy who is going to headline this Mississippi roster at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star Game coming up December 14th at Southern Miss.
Well, McKinley Jackson, he's a pretty big kid, and he fits the build of an NFL player right now, 6'2", 327 pounds. And
he's a guy that's similar to like a Quinnen Williams at Alabama.
Yes.
Really big guy, but you think he plays like he's about 200 pounds, but he's actually about 280 or 310, or he told me he was 310 last week. So, but he plays like a guy who's just an athlete, with great quickness. So he's a guy that Alabama will have to contend with in this high school All-Star game.
Great. Going around the league in high school football real quick, we saw Biloxi is at 5-1, Gulfport 4-2 on the league, St. Martin is 5-1. D'Iberville 5-1, and they all had wins this weekend. Picayune, they're a little bit out of the area, but they're still known in this area for their play. It's 6-0, still undefeated. What do you see out of Picayune? Do you see anything there?
It's always interesting for me to see how the teams on the coast do against the rest of the state. When you look at like this all-star roster, or you're just looking at teams in the top 10 in the state, it's interesting to see how those teams are doing, and certainly it looks like the cream is now rising to the top.
Yes. Looking at some of the quarterback play, we've got Pat Greer out of St. Martin at 1,295 yards on the season, having a good season there. And then senior Cade Crosby out of Gulfport, 1,073 yards already this season. That's pretty good production there.
And it's amazing, back when 100 years ago when we played, how different it was. You'd throw for that in a career, and now these guys, through 6 games, they're throwing for that many yards, but it's just filtered down from the pro and the college level down to high schools now.
When we come back, we'll see what's happening in college football and talk about the Saints' big win this weekend on Breakfast with Champions.
Vic Dion at Champion. Shopping online for a vehicle drives me crazy. We have a website, but in order to stay competitive, we have to put every discount available, which most people don't qualify for. You own a horse, you get $500. You got a hamster, you get another $1,000. It's that ridiculous, and I don't like it. Come on over to Champion. Let's visit the websites together. All of them. At Champion, you're still going to find the best price on the coast. Check us out during Ram Power Days at Champion.
Business has one speed, fast, and with new 1 gig internet from Sparklight Business, you can put yours on the fast track to success. We're delivering on our promise to connect you to more opportunities, more speeds, and more flexible plans. With speeds up to 1 gig, you can download a 2-hour presentation in 8 seconds. Collaborate across the country in real time. Access cloud-based applications instantly and more. Because with new speeds come new possibilities. Call now to find the right speed for your business with Sparklight Business.
Welcome back to Breakfast with Champion at Port City Cafe in Biloxi, which we've renamed Sport City Cafe. And this is also Cruising the Coast weekend, so if you're out and about, you're going to see a lot of old cars. I'm Jeff Marion with Randy Kennedy from iHeartRadio, also with the Southern 120 and AL.com. And looking at, we were talking earlier about high school football and how those players that you're looking at usually transition. I mean, they start as high school players going into the college, and this is where we talk about our college football. Out of the recruits from last year that you looked at, who are some of your top performers in the college football rankings right now?
Well, it is amazing to see this now. It used to be this major transition. You would go from, the high school level to the college level, and there was that period where transition period. Now it just doesn't seem like that's the case. These guys come in ready to play. You look at Alabama's ranked number 1 in the country. Of their starting front 7, 4 of those guys are true freshmen, guys who were on the high school level last year. You see Stingley at LSU is one of the best defensive backs in the country, not just as a freshman, but one of the best defensive backs in the country overall. So you see these guys come in ready to play right away. John Rice Plumlee is now the quarterback at Ole Miss. We saw him last year on the coast down here at quarterback at Oak Grove up in Hattiesburg. And so, these guys come in ready to play now. That's why we talk so much about recruiting, because next year we'll be talking about them on the college level.
Well, you were talking about earlier in our last segment about the All-Star game, the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. How crucial is that in the recruiting process, that game that's going to be played soon?
It's important, but the calendar has been moved up so much with this early December signing period, so a lot of these guys are going to have signed the week of that All-Star game. Right now, of my 120 top players in the Southeast, 102 of those guys have already committed to play in college somewhere. So most of the guys go ahead and decide where they're going to go, though for some, they'll play it all the way out into December and up until the February regular signing period.
In the state of Mississippi, state of Alabama, who are a couple of people that are not quite, that are juniors that we should be looking at coming up?
Well, it's a good year. It's a really good year in Alabama this year. In Alabama, it's a little less so. We talked about that, the All-Star game, a couple of guys we're going to see on display. Demoy Kennedy from Theodore, which is right down here on the coast in Alabama, is a kid who's going to Alabama who is, I would expect to be a starter at Alabama as a true freshman, which is, again, just kind of continuing this trend of, top guys. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm looking for, we're always talking about quarterbacks and where the quarterbacks are coming from. It's not a great cycle this year or in the junior class yet of great quarterbacks in Mississippi and Alabama, though I'm sure some of those guys will emerge.
Well, looking in the rankings this week, we've had a few people that have dropped down, some that have moved up a little bit. Alabama and Clemson had their bye week this week. Who are some teams this week that you saw brought their stock up a little bit?
Well, I think you start with Florida. Obviously they're in the middle of this terrible gauntlet of tough teams, but they got past the first one when they beat Auburn at home. I thought it was a really impressive performance for Florida, particularly on defense, where they completely shut down Auburn. I thought that game was as much to do with Auburn not playing well as Florida really playing well, but Florida sort of survives and advances, and now this week go to Baton Rouge, and we'll find out for sure not only about Florida, but now about LSU, because I think all of us are convinced LSU's really good, right?
Right.
But now they're going to face a defense like they haven't seen so far. Be interesting to see how they do against this Florida defense. Florida just got to earn the right to still be one of those 9 teams left in the country, undefeated, and a clear path to the playoff and a national championship if they can keep winning. Of course, it gets really tough this week in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, that's going to be tough for Florida. Last week they were at number 10, moving up to number 7 in the polls. Who else would you say might be a candidate that's a dark horse to get into that playoff that we may not be talking about right now?
Well, I mentioned there are 9 teams from the power conferences undefeated that have a clear path. Penn State's one of those teams. They've been impressive every single week, and yet, even in the Big Ten, we're talking about Ohio State, we're talking about Wisconsin. Previously, we were talking about Michigan. Nobody has said much about Penn State, and yet they have been impressive every single week. So that's a team with a clear path to the playoff. We'll just see how it goes for them, but they were impressive again last week.
Wow. And in LSU being up there in the top, they're still hanging out at number 5. Is there any reason they should be that low, or are you think? What's the thought there? Why have they not broken the top? In the top 5.
Well, they'll have a chance. The big matchup this weekend with Florida. I thought last weekend, 42-6 over Utah State. I thought the offense was a little bit lethargic, wasn't great throughout the whole game, a little uneven, but defensively was probably their best game of the year. The quarterback at Utah State, this Jordan Love, is going to be a NFL quarterback, probably a first-round pick coming up, and they keep them out of the end zone. I thought that was the best sign yet for LSU. Because we know now that LSU has got that offense, but to do that to Utah State, to completely shut them down, I thought was an impressive performance. I think Utah State's offense is at least as good as Florida, who they play this week.
I see that on the coaches, or in the AP poll, not the coaches poll, but in the AP poll, they have Ohio State and Georgia tied at number 3. Is there a reason there should be a tie there? Do you think one of those has the pull over the other? What is your thought there?
Well, I think going into the year, we probably knew more about Georgia, just feeling better about what we knew about Georgia. But Ohio State has been completely impressive. Justin Fields, the Georgia transfer at quarterback, they have been dominant. Ohio State's played a pretty decent schedule so far. Michigan State's not a great team, but a decent team, and Ohio State completely let the air out of that game very early on, just a dominating performance. So I don't know how you really put anybody over those two at this point, including Clemson, which has kind of been, kind of their own reputation. They haven't played great so far this year, but the defending national champs undefeated, you keep them up there. But it'll all sort itself out, really starting this weekend, Florida LSU being one of those huge games that's going to start to sort things out a little bit in college football.
Yeah, coming up this week, number 1 Alabama is going to be at Texas A&M. Last year they played in Alabama. This year it's at Texas A&M. Do you think Texas A&M might slow them down a little bit, or do you think it's going to be another blowout game?
No, I don't think they're going to slow them down. It's amazing that on the Alabama schedule, which is not very good, by the way, not a tough schedule, finally we get to a game where it's like, okay, finally Alabama's going to play somebody with a pulse, and yet Alabama goes on the road and they're like an 18-point favorite over Texas A&M. Texas A&M may be able to move the ball some with Kellen Mond, but I just don't see them slowing Alabama down at all.
Alabama does have a way of kind of sucking the momentum out of the other team. It just happens. It's like a vacuum. Number 7 Florida goes into LSU this weekend. That might be a tough game because of the defense that Florida has. We're going to get to see what Joe Burrow really is made of, right?
We will, and I'm completely sold on the LSU offense, but if they can do that against Florida, continue to move the ball consistently the way they have against Florida, then there will be no doubts whatsoever, because while Florida's not great on offense, this defense is for real. That defensive front is for real, and the LSU offensive line is going to really get that major test coming up this Saturday. It's going to be fun to see.
And in the weeks ahead, we'll get to kind of see things shape up as everybody hits their heavy schedule. We're going to take a quick break. We're Breakfast with Champion. We'll be talking about the Saints next.
It's Vic Dehan at Champion Chrysler Dodge Jeep. We have the sleek and fast Charger SXT right here at Champion for $19 and some change. U.S. News ranked it one of the best top 10 American-made vehicles on the road today. A sports car with comfort. Come and ask for stock number 39120. Some terms and conditions may apply. It's the Dodge Power Dollar Sale here at Champion. ChampionValue.com.
Champion!
This town is on the move, and we're moving forward with you, helping you grow your business and connect to more customers using today's ever-evolving advertising technologies. Now we're taking our commitment to you one step further, connecting people to one another, connecting your business to the world, connecting what's now to what's next. Sparklight Advertising. Go anywhere from here.
Good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Champion at Port City Cafe, which we've renamed Sport City Cafe. I'm here with Ernest Ulrich and Russell Shank from the Hard Rock Cafe and the sports betting.
That's right. Glad to be here, ready to talk some NFL football.
I tell you what, I said that we're going to talk about the big win that the Saints had, but right now with Drew Brees being out, wouldn't you consider any win a big win?
Absolutely. I think 3 weeks ago when Drew Brees went down, nobody thought we'd be sitting here with 3-0 with Teddy Bridgewater.
Absolutely. And what do you think? You know, everyone was talking about last week how the Bucs defense was going to shut down Kamara. He wasn't going to be able to run. Teddy Bridgewater only dinks and dunks. And tell us what you saw out of that game, Ernest.
Well, I tell you what, being at the game, just the pregame, watching him warm up, Teddy just looked loose. He looked like he was ready for the game. He was making throws. I mean, everybody was loose. The music was playing. The crowd was into it. Pre-game, I think that the Cowboys' victory gave everybody just so much more energy and so much more excitement, enthusiasm. Even with Brees still being on the bench. I mean, we felt like, hey, you know, we're looking good. We're looking real good. We're happy.
They seemed to play with confidence yesterday.
Yes.
I mean, they just looked confident. Teddy Bridgewater was making great passes. The defense was locking down on the wide receivers and just played a whole team effort. And they played with confidence, man. They had a swagger yesterday.
Well, Teddy Bridgewater had his first 300-yard game in a Saints outfit, had 4 TD passes to 3 different receivers, and he looked different in a way that, okay, you're going to take Michael Thomas out. They're double teaming him. He's still hitting him deep down the field. And then it opened up for other receivers, and Jared Cook had his best game in a Saints uniform.
Yes, and I tell you, Bridgewater has made me a believer because coming into it, I was against him even starting when they were going to the Rams. And I thought, well, if Hill's your guy, you got to have him in there. And I'm eating some crow on that one.
I think a lot of people are, because looking at talking heads across the board, no one really had confidence. They called him a game manager. But yesterday he looked like a Pro Bowl quarterback.
He absolutely did. And the team altogether looked really, really good. And the defense is what really impressed me the most. Shutting down Michael Evans. No catches, are you kidding me? An elite wide receiver. They really looked like they had a game plan for him, man-to-man instead of zone, and they looked great.
I think it looks like Dennis Allen might be moving a little bit into a kind of a hybrid coverage where you do have some zone looks, but you're moving into some man coverage, and that's where I think Marshawn Lattimore seems to perform best, when he can zone in on the best receiver and lock them down. I think he did that. What are your thoughts, Ernest?
Well, the one thing I noticed, again from the offense standpoint, was they tried to shut down the rushing game with Kamara, which I mean, Kamara didn't have one of his normal games as far as running the ball, so they shut that down. But then Teddy was able to pick up on the offensive side and go to Jared Cook and go to Michael Thomas. On the defensive side, I mean, Winston was just in the pocket. I mean, he you know, you talk about crab legs. He had some crab legs going on. I mean, he was back there, you know, bouncing around. But you know, they put so much pressure on him. Eli Apple, I mean, you know, he had a pick. You know, I mean, it was penalties. But Eli Apple had one of his best games. I know Godwin had a big game, but heck, he's got to throw the ball to somebody. So we shut down Michael Evans, went to Godwin on it. But, you know, I mean, they had control of the game, you know, for here out. We had some penalties, like the Cowboys game. I think if they clean that up, that's going to make a big difference and for them to be more successful.
What I'm trying to figure out is, how do you have a delay a game penalty that's called after the play or in the middle of the play? It wasn't till the pick happened that the flag comes out. But there's some things you can see officiating needs to clean up. But as we move along, looking at this game, we're talking about the defense. People were down on Marcus Davenport. The Saints gave up too much for him. But I saw some speed out of him yesterday coming off that edge that I think in power, he has some speed and some power. What are you seeing out of Marcus Davenport, and how do you think he's going to come along as they play more games?
I think the defense is starting to gel and starting to come together completely. And I think Davenport solidifies the line, coming off and that rush pack attack. And when you're talking about this game specifically, I thought Tampa Bay came in with the right defensive scheme.
Yes.
Make Bridgewater beat you. Don't let Kimura have his big games. Shut all that down and make him throw down the field. And guess what? He did, and the Saints won.
Well, talking about wins, there were some people that didn't win that we kind of expected. The league and all the talking heads again, high on Dallas Cowboys. How much do you think the loss to the Saints caused them to stumble in their home territory last night?
Well, when you talk about Green Bay, I'm going to sit up because that's my team. And I tell you, Aaron Rodgers is now 7-2 against the Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately, Brett Favre was like 2-9 against Dallas. So it just seems like Aaron Rodgers loves playing in Dallas. He's basically perfect there, and 7-2 now against the Cowboys. Also, if you take a look at Jones, he's had his best games where? In Dallas. If you look at his top 3 games ever in his career, they've all been against the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, yeah. I went into this game very confident and feeling really good because I felt like there was way too much hype on Dallas. Their first 3 games were against very simple, easy competition, and they got real excited thinking they were going to be Super Bowl contenders. And then the Saints showed them that they weren't, and yesterday, Green Bay was just all over them. I thought there at the end, the momentum kind of changed and came back.
Well, we only have 2 undefeated teams left. That's the Patriots and San Francisco 49ers. Who would have thought that? And we're going to talk more about sports betting with Russell when we come back on Breakfast with Champions.
Hey folks, feeling like a bit of adventure? Well, we got it for you. The Jeep Cherokee Latitude Plus right here at Champion for 19 and some change. That's right, you heard it right. 19 and some change for a Cherokee Latitude. A JD Power 5-star rating. Come on in and ask for stock number 69059. Some terms and conditions may apply. It's time for Jeep Adventure Days here at Champion. ChampionValue.com. Champion!
Good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Champion. I'm Jeff Marion, visiting with Russell Ulrich and Russell Shank, Ernest Ulrich. And good morning and thank you for the food. It's Cruising the Coast week, so check out the classic cars going up and down the highway. This week, we got some games we want to talk about on the sports betting. Russell, what are you seeing out there?
I tell you, this has been one of those years up and down. Now, the Saints have covered every week. They are perfect in the sportsbook covering line. So let's talk about some games.
Well, how about the Saints-Jaguars this weekend?
It's a pick'em. It's in Jacksonville, which is a difficult stadium to play in. But I think the Saints keep rolling. My money's on New Orleans to get the victory in Jacksonville.
The Saints are one of the three teams that have won in Jacksonville out of the NFC South division. So the Jaguars have a winning record against our division in home. I did want to ask you, though, when you say pick 'em, what does that mean in the sports betting world?
Basically what a pick 'em is, there's going to be no, if you want to bet the point line, there's going to be no line. It's basically like a money line. There's no real, it's whoever wins the game. And it's going to be 110 to win $100.
Okay. 110 to win $100.
And look, as a Saints fan, load up on the Saints. I mean, when you got a pick'em game like that, I mean, it's real simple. You're betting the Saints to win.
That's it.
And you got no points. You're not, plus or minus. It's just go down there, lay your 110 to win 100 on the Saints, and boom. And they're 5-0 this year. Hey, you got to roll with it. Keep rolling with it. I see the Saints winning the game easy.
So, are there any games you want to hear about in the betting world?
Any games I want to hear about?
Yeah. What would you like to have Russell talk about?
The 49ers and the Rams. I mean.
I tell you, the spread on that line is what, -4 for the Rams at home. I just don't think they cover. I don't think they cover. I think it's a division game. It's going to be very, very close. I think the Rams probably win by 3.
Yeah, when they won against the Saints at home, Drew Brees doesn't get hurt. That game goes a different way. And then with the adjustment to Teddy Bridgewater, the game just, in some of the calls it didn't go that way. The Saints got deflated on that one. So Rams just aren't, I'm not seeing them go up at home.
And Texans and the Chiefs. The Chiefs giving up 6.5 points against the Texans. I think that the Texans come in there and might actually even win the game. I think the Chiefs are on the downslide. They're not putting it together like they were. The last 2 games they just lost to the Colts, and the week before that they got lucky to get a win out of there. And I think the Texans come in. I think they're going to win straight up.
Well, they scored pretty high against the Falcons this weekend, putting up over 50 points. And the Falcons' defense is not too easy to score points on, but they are. I mean, Atlanta's got their issues right now. But another game I wanted to hear about was the Falcons and the Cardinals.
This is the game that is interesting to me. I think the Cardinals are gonna beat up the Falcons. I think Matt Ryan is just playing so poorly this year, and it's taken the whole team the confidence completely away. He is missing plays left and right, and he just doesn't look like the quarterback he used to be.
LSU, Florida, who would you pick on that one?
I think LSU. I don't know if they win, but I think I would take them in the point line.
That's going to be a tough one in Death Valley. We're running out of time. It's good to visit with you this weekend. Breakfast with Champions. It catches every afternoon at 6 p.m.